Good morning to everyone, and thank you for joining us today in this third and last day of the Donor Partners Forum of the IDB. My name is Luciana Garcia, and I'm a senior specialist at the bank's Regional Integration Unit. My colleagues from the Integration and Trade sector and I are very pleased to be able to share with you some exciting projects that the bank is designing to support its client countries in their post-pandemic recovery efforts. That is why, as the title of this segment suggests, from the IDB, we're actively seeking to support a renewed regional integration agenda that responds to current needs and demands, because a more pragmatic take on regional integration can greatly facilitate and accelerate the speed of recovery of our region. Making use of the IDB's distinctive regional focus to promote the implementation of joint and coordinated policies among its borrowing member countries, this session will showcase 3 key initiatives that share the common objective of promoting regional integration and regional value chains, and for which we're actively seeking partners to expand their scope and achieve a greater impact. This session will allow for Q&A at the end, so I would invite you all to submit your questions in the chat, and I will read them out to our speakers. And now let me leave the floor to Jaime Granados, our Trade and Investment Division Chief, to talk about how to promote sustainable FDI for post-pandemic recovery in Latin America and the Caribbean. Jaime, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I'm going to share the screen. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Thank you. All right. My proposal is called Promoting Sustainable FDI, Foreign Direct Investment, for Post-Pandemic Recovery. I'm going to explain the problem first. As we all know, we are in the middle of a very important economic challenge, which is to promote the recovery of Latin America after the COVID-19 crisis. In general terms, the countries need a huge amount of resources in order to foot the bill for the reconstruction, for the recovery in all the dimensions of all of the countries. We have here a chart in which it shows the gross financing needs of selected countries in Latin America as a percentage of the GDP, and we see that the amount of resources is becoming bigger, and it's bigger by the day. We all know that in general, foreign direct investment has been a very important part of financing for countries worldwide, but in Latin America in particular. Usually about 30% of the financing comes via FDI. The problem right now is that FDI has been declining in the last 10, 11 years since the last financial crisis in 2009. And this is, of course, making competition for foreign direct investment tougher. So we need to intervene in that particular line. On the other hand, we all know that sustainability is a major challenge today, and that we all are pursuing the sustainable development goals wholeheartedly. And this is a very important dimension of everybody's day-to-day life, but in particular in pursuing foreign direct investment that complies with sustainable development challenge. However, that is not easy. I mean, it is complex. When we want to discuss what is sustainable foreign direct investment, there are many dimensions of this work: environmental sustainability, social development, good governance, economic development, and each one of these different dimensions has its own particular, subtopics that we need to take care of. So what is sustainable FDI, how to measure, how to promote it, how to mainstream it in the FDI cycle, it implies and are some of the main problems that we have. Is any sustainable FDI or any proposal on FDI sustainable? I mean, by the fact that it promotes infrastructure, does it make it sustainable? Or by the fact that it complies with labor rights, does it make it sustainable? There are important issues here that we need to take into account in terms of defining, promoting, measuring, evaluating. When are we in the presence of sustainable FDI? So the countries are before some specific tasks to attract FDI, which is scarcer every day, that contributes to sustainability, but without distorting markets or adding new costs. So they have to be very, very fine-tuned in order to identify this kind of sustainable development FDI and to be able to attract it into its country, for which they need specific tools. The fundamental questions that we have here is how to incorporate sustainability in the FDI cycle. That is, how to promote it, how to facilitate it, how to monitor it, and how to retain it and to induce reinvestments by the firms into the host country. So we need a more precise definition of sustainable FDI. There are many attempts at defining it, at least from an operational point of view. It is very important to have a clear idea as to when are we in front of a project or in front of a set of portfolios that comply with sustainable parameters. Second, third, we need to be able to teach the countries and the ministries and the agencies to evaluate sustainable FDI. That is, to evaluate it from an ex-ante perspective and an ex-post perspective. We have been helping the countries in evaluating FDI in general, but not sustainable FDI. We've been very active in promoting, facilitating, monitoring, and helping the countries reinvest. But we need to refine the focus so that they can do it from a sustainable perspective. And we need technologies to simplify these processes in Latin America, mostly in Latin America's investment promotion agencies, or the IPAs. So the proposal here in a nutshell is that we need to add value to the current work of the IPAs by refining the skills of Latin American governments and Latin American IPAs to develop and to update sustainable FDI policy frameworks and to engage in sustainable FDI promotion by providing them with the training, the tools, and the technologies to be able to do so in a more efficient and effective manner. The beneficiaries will be the ministries in charge of defining investment policy in Latin America, the same investment promotion agencies, and of course ourselves, which are always designing operational products that now feel the demand to do it in such a way that we promote sustainable FDI. The activities that we are promoting are the following, and this is very closely to the results we expect. A toolkit to help Latin American countries to prepare sustainable FDI policy framework and KPIs, of course. If we cannot measure them, it doesn't exist. To integrate the sustainable dimension in the FDI cycle, that is promotion, facilitation, retention, evaluation, and then to evaluate sustainable projects and portfolios. Second, we need technologies, and by that we are going to generate a benchmark on digital tools used to promote and monitor sustainable FDI. Again, we've been helping the countries with benchmarks of different types, but we want to focus on digital tools that are exclusively designed to promote and monitor sustainable FDI. Then we need we are thinking of developing a proof of concept or prototypes of at least 2 new digital tools implemented in 2 Latin American countries. Of course, we are thinking about training and disseminating the findings, a publication of a policy brief, a handbook, so that this knowledge is disseminated throughout Latin America and the Caribbean. The achievements that we look is, how does this solution works? Well, we find that there is demand for these activities in Latin America. We've been designing projects in Latin America in order to cope with the recovery, and many countries are demanding this kind of approaches. You know, FDI that is inclusive in territorial terms, in social terms, in environmental terms. So we've been having a long history of successful work with the ministries, and we have developed cutting-edge knowledge products on FDI and IPAs, and we have experience in the type of specific activities and tasks to be implemented via this proposal. Partners are definitely needed to leverage the relevance of the sustainability dimension in our countries, to articulate specific operational solutions, and mostly they can also help us sensitize FDI in country of origin that is coming to Latin America. That's a very important dimension. The status is unfunded, and we need to identify donors so as to prepare the project, seek approval, and we expect an execution period of 2 years for a cost or an amount of $500,000. And this is, in a nutshell, our proposal. If there are more questions of any kind, we will be happy to answer them. Thank you very much, Lu.
Thank you very much, Jaime, for your presentation. And now let me turn to our colleagues, Sebastián González and Daniela Gomez, who will tell us about a program we're particularly proud of here at the IDB, Growing Together in the Americas.
Thank you, Luciana. Good morning, and thank you for being here and for listening. Daniela and I from the Trade and Integration sector are honored to present Women Growing Together in the Americas. Daniela is going to project the presentation. Our objective with this program is to support women-led SMEs so that they can participate more in foreign trade activities and help them be part of regional and global value chains. Today, actually, we're seeking your interest and support to multiply the initial capital that we have for this program so that we can have greater impact both in terms of quality and quantity. As my colleague Jaime explained, and as you have discussed in these past days, there is no doubt about the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic in Latin America. In fact, the data is heartbreaking. But I want to point to one data point that you can see on the bottom right of your screen, which is that there's estimates that around 2.7 million businesses closed during the pandemic. And most of those businesses were micro, small, medium enterprises. Just think that for a second, 2.7 million businesses and people who had no other alternative than to close. So under this daunting reality, IDB's president, Mauricio Claver-Caron, called for immediate and bold public-private solutions that could have a direct impact in the social and economic recovery. So responding to his call for action, the team began to craft a new program focused on addressing some of the most pressing challenges that women-led SMEs are facing. And as part of this process, the team of this project, we understood that first, we had to listen to then design a program that could have real impact. So to do so, we actually used our connectamericas.com platform to gather first-hand information from women-led SMEs on what were those most pressing challenges. For those of you who are not familiar with connectamericas.com, this is IDB's flagship SME platform, which connects businesses in the Americas and the globe under one underlying priority: to help them export more. Today, actually, the platform has around 500,000 registered users, and within it, we do have a subchapter focused exclusively on women SMEs with 150,000 women actively engaged. So coming back to the listening exercise, in just over a week, we actually received responses from 1,000 SMEs from more than 20 countries. More importantly, the data showed us that compared with their male peers, women SMEs are facing three main challenges. Number one, 77% do not export. Research has shown that businesses actually that exports have longer lifespans, pay better salaries, and are overall stronger. The second data point is that more than 60% did not have or do not have the resources, both human and financial, to implement a digital transformation of their businesses. And third, 76% needed financing during the pandemic, but could not get it. So with the support of our Chief Strategy Officer and Chief of Staff, Jessica Beroja, and other IDB senior management, the project team conceived, designed, and attained initial capital for this program, Women Growing Together in the Americas. And actually, we launched this program back in March in our annual meeting of the Boards of Governors in Barranquilla, Colombia. And this program is also touches on 4 of the 5 pillars of our Vision 2025. Our goal is to provide specialized technical assistance in 3 main areas. Number 1, help them develop skills to facilitate their participation in regional and global value chain and thus export more. Second, improve technology adoption for digital transformation of their businesses. And third, help them improve their financial structure and their access to opportunities. Now, you're probably asking yourselves, how are we going to do it? So we designed this program to be executed in the form of 3 challenges or 3 calls for applications, as we call it. Our approach is to have a uniquely designed methodology for each of the challenges, where companies or businesses, women-led businesses, will be moving through a ladder type approach. However, this will require their commitment. For each challenge, the participants will receive a diagnostics of their company's needs, cutting-edge training and capacity building provided by experts and partners, a work plan to advance on the strengthening of their businesses, and those SMEs who have high performance and engagement will also have access to world-class technical assistance, advisory services that will accompany them through the transformation process. We expect to impact around 500 SMEs per each of the challenge, and we expect to impact around 45 businesses receiving one-on-one technical assistance. So now let me turn it to my colleague Daniela, who will conclude the presentation, and then we can have questions at the end of our session. Thank you.
Daniela, you're on mute.
Thank you. So who do we want to benefit? We plan to target businesses owned or led by women, legally established in Latin America and the Caribbean, who have already a demonstrated experience and trajectory in their market and industry. Also, we're going to value and prioritize companies with potential to join value chains or to export or who aim to export their services or products. So why partner with us? There are three main reasons I would like to highlight about working with Connect Americas and about supporting our program. First of all, the scale of our impact. We plan to leverage the connectamericas.com business platform to reproduce all the contents that during the three challenges we're going to produce. So everything will be documented and shared for all the members of our network to benefit. Second, sustainability. We already have a network of more than 300 local partners, and we plan to more than document to train them in how to assess businesses in their digital transformation efforts, and we plan to install capacities among them. So we go beyond the companies that we're going to directly impact with the program. And third, we're building upon the experience of the 100K challenge, a very successful program that we're closing this year, and the technical expertise of the IDB and several partners, including some of them are in the bottom of the slide, but also including universities, as I said, our local partners, and the technical expertise of the IDB, of course. So how can you contribute to women growing together in the Americas? We're seeking for additional resources, both financial and in kind, to first increase the number of businesses that we're able to reach with our program. Even though we plan and we have the resources to reach about 1,500 SMEs in the region, we would like a larger portion of them to access the in-depth technical assistance. Second, we would also like resources to train business support organization and to reach more of our local partners with this training. Third, to collect and analyze gender disaggregated data. And this is a very important point because at Connect Americas, we're constantly producing content for businesses to improve their export capacities. And this sort of evidence strengthens the contents that we can produce. And fourth, we will organize business matching events, which are one of the main or the most direct ways in which these SMEs can access new markets. Here are some of the key dates of our programs. Right now, we just closed the first call for applications for the first challenge, digitalization for foreign trade, and we're already working in the methodological approach for the second and the third challenge. We invite all of you to join the challenge that best connects with your interests and your priorities. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Daniela and Sebastián. And now, last but not least, let me introduce you to Miguel Brown, who will talk about a project on how to boost investment attraction in the countries of the Northern Triangle. Miguel, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Let me share the screen. Okay. There we go. So this project is related to making investment happen in the Northern Triangle, and basically the motivation is that these countries desperately need to attract investment to create jobs, boost economic growth, and stem the incessant outflow of migrants. The current context, we believe, in global value chain reconfiguration provides a unique opportunity because many companies, US-based multinationals especially, are looking to relocate parts of their global supply chains in order to increase the resiliency of these supply chains in the face of geopolitical risk, in the face of pandemic risks, and in particular also to limit environmental impacts, which is a growing concern of their customers. In this context, the Northern Triangle can profit from this reconfiguration by leveraging its unique characteristics that give it some advantages. They have clear proximity to the United States markets, a strong cultural affinity, bi-oceanic access, compatible time zones, competitive labor costs, and an ample network of free trade agreements, all of which provide great opportunities to attract investments. The specific project we're thinking of is to work in two areas. We want to work on a market access strategy for the Northern Triangle agro-industrial sector to enter the US market, and on the other hand, on the design and implementation of English and basic programming finishing schools focused on increasing labor supply in the Northern Triangle, specifically for the ITO and BPO sectors. These are sectors that we identified as having great potential for quick wins. We have been working on researching strategies for the different countries in Latin America and the Caribbean, and in particular in the Northern Triangle, to see which products these countries are currently exporting to the US, and the US is also importing from outside the Western Hemisphere. And we identify within these products those with the greatest opportunities to increase exports in the short run. And in the Northern Triangle, we find that two of these sectors are agro-industrial products and services like ITO and BPO. And of course, I mean, there are great challenges for investment in the Northern Triangle. There are structural problems, perceptions of corruption, issues of personal security, weak institutions, etc., that we won't solve from one day to the next. But there are many investments that do not happen because of short-run constraints, and those are the ones we want to address with these projects. The beneficiaries of our project would be, of course, the workers and families in these sectors, and this could also benefit the economy as a whole, the economies as a whole, because it would increase exports and retain in the country some of the most capable people who otherwise might choose to emigrate. So how does the solution work? Our program overcomes short-term constraints that limit investments in the agro-industrial and service sectors. In the agro-industrial case, by improving market access and increasing exports, and in the second case, by increasing the availability of human capital. These are factors that companies in this sector have, and specialists and government officials have identified as short-term constraints to the growth of these sectors in hundreds of interviews that we've done in the countries of the Northern Triangle. So why do we need partners for this? Well, both programs require funding. The IDB is putting up part of the funding, but we would benefit from support from partners, and of course from a network of supporting institutions that can contribute to a more effective design and implementation of these programs. What is the current status? Well, the IDB has worked on in-depth regional value chain investment attraction strategies for the Northern Triangle countries and, of course, for the rest of Latin America. As I said, we've identified the sectors with the most potential, and we've looked at what are the short-run constraints that hinder the realization of potential quick wins in these sectors. And now we're designing specific pilot programs to test the validity of the results of our work, and of course to scale this up. So the next steps will be to implement these pilot programs, to evaluate the impact that they have, to take lessons learned, and then implement a full rollout of a Northern Triangle regional value chain investment attraction strategy. The cost for these pilot programs is around $1 million. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Miguel. And before moving on to questions, I would just like to mention that if there's any specific interest for a project, you should feel free to contact our Office of Outreach or Partnerships, and they will liaise with our colleagues that have presented today each one of the initiatives. And for references purposes, I want to say that the bank collaborates in two main ways with its partners, either via project-specific grants to finance one single pre-identified operation by a donor partner, or via pre-established donor trust funds that receive contributions from either one or more donors. And here I want to take a minute to mention the Multi-Donor Regional Integration Fund. It was created in 2015, and it has financed to date more than 30 grants totaling 23 million, with contributions originally from Canada, Chile, Colombia, Mexico, Spain, and the United States. This fund finances interventions within three main thematic pillars. The first one is the improvement and regional harmonization of legal, regulatory, and procedural frameworks in relation to trade facilitation, logistics, infrastructure, energy, telecom, and financial integration. The second pillar is the strengthening of institutional capacities and interagency cooperation in trade and integration through training, management, and organizational change. And finally, the third pillar is the mobilization and leveraging of increased resources to prioritize integration and trade initiatives, as well as to facilitate national investments with a regional and global integration impact. Some examples of projects that have been financed in these three thematic priorities include, among others, for example, the support to countries in the Pacific Alliance to analyze women entrepreneurs' participation in international trade and the challenges they face, a diagnostic of the legal, regulatory, and resource mobilization frameworks of the aviation sector, and the implementation of the Central American Digital Trade Platform, which will enable electronic data exchange among countries, single window systems and customs, migration, and sanitary agencies, among others. It's worth mentioning that these grant resources are key to leverage larger scale interventions. For example, in the case of the grant supporting coordinated border management that I just mentioned, in combination with resources from the EU Commission, these grants have supported IDB loans in Costa Rica, Nicaragua, and Panama, totaling more than $200 million. So this fund is open to receive new contributions and can perfectly accommodate all projects discussed here today. And now I would like to turn to our speakers again for some questions about their projects. So I'm going to start in the order of the presentations. And the first question would go to Jaime. Jaime, are there other organizations working on the issues of sustainable FDI, and how do you plan to coordinate with them and build on such efforts, if any?
Yes, thank you, Luciana, for the question. And yes, we are not alone in tackling this relevant issue right now. In fact, we are part of a broader global network of organizations and institutions dealing with this challenge. We know, for instance, and we work with the OECD on issues of foreign direct investment, and we have been participating in many of the roundtables on investment and sustainable development that they've been having. So this is an issue that, it's quite relevant today. Also, the G20, of course, we know the G20 has been working on a sustainable finance working group now under the Italian chairmanship, in which this issue of sustainable FDI also gains a lot of prominence, of relevance. The WEF, the World Economic Forum, also has prepared several background documents on, for instance, an indicative list of FDI sustainability characteristics. So we need to bring all those issues and all that work, all that background into Latin America to help them mainstream sustainable FDI into their policy frameworks, into the day-to-day activities in the IPAs. And we are going to work and build upon those efforts that are taking place currently at the global level.
Thank you very much, Jaime. And now, Sebastián and Daniela, regarding the program Growing Together in the Americas, can you expand a little bit how this is different from what Conecta Americas for Women has done in the past?
Sure, thank you, Luciana. That's a great question. Actually, I think there's three things. Number one is the opportunity. For women-led SMEs in Latin America to have access to first-class capacity building opportunities, it's sometimes merely a dream. So we want to provide this opportunity. The second point is we want to help them assess and provide the tools. When we were speaking to them, they actually told us we not necessarily need funding or money. We lack the expertise and we don't know how to do it. So we actually want to help them throughout that process. And the third point is we want to learn under this new reality of COVID-19. We want to learn with them to then scale up at country level.
Thank you very much, Sebastián. And finally, I would like to ask Miguel about his project. Why is the project focused on the textile and BPO sectors? How did you come up with these sectors? How do you prioritize?
Thanks, Luciana. Yeah, that's a good question. We've been doing country strategies for all the Latin American countries to try to identify which are the sectors and products that have the greatest opportunities to quickly expand exports to the US mainly. And we applied first a top-down methodology looking at trade statistics mainly, seeing which products these countries are already exporting to the US, and at the same time the US is importing from outside the Western Hemisphere. So they're products for which the Latin American countries already have successful exporting companies, which one would think could a priori expand their exports to the US. And at the same time, the US is a strong importer. So there is the opportunity to substitute imports that the US is already doing from somewhere else. And then we went for a bottom-up validation with local consultants and specialists that did interviews to business people, government officials, experts, etc., in each of the countries. And we sought to validate the top-down analysis and at the same time to incorporate other products that maybe were not captured by that statistical analysis. And at the end of the day, in the Northern Triangle countries, we found that these sectors are the ones where there are more products with a great opportunity to expand exports.
Thank you very much, Miguel. And I want to thank all of our speakers today and all of you for your participation this morning. Please feel free to contact our Office of Outreach and Partnerships should you require further information on any of the projects that were presented in this session and regarding the collaboration modalities with IDB, the PSGs that I mentioned, or the Region Integration Multi-Donor Fund. And we will be happy to set up a follow-up bilateral meeting. Thank you very much and have a great day.